Okay, what I want to take a look at right now is what is the difference with these CSS selectors? Now, again, what I often have found and say quite a bit with the Adobe software in general is there's a lot of ways to do the same thing and get the different effects. And so much really depends on before starting a project, especially a website, is really thinking, is planning and thinking about things and, trying it and being okay if you have to redo it. All right, so with that said, with that little piece of wisdom about building websites, what I want to do in this video is take a look at what the difference is between the CSS selectors. So what we have with these, with our CSS selectors is we have class ID, tag, and compound. Okay, and I actually didn't enter anything about compound, but I'll show that compound's actually based on your selection. All right, so let's take a look at this. So first thing we can come in here and we're going to just take a quick look at our CSS Styles panel, and I just have this all attached to this sheet. And what you can see is that I actually have a header, and that's really about it. Okay, that's really about it. So what I want to do is let's actually create a new rule. All right, you could do it one of two ways. You also come to the properties panel and you could come right to here and you could say new rule. Okay, new CSS rule, and let's go edit. Now, what I want to do, and this is what the compound's doing, it's actually basing it on my selection, but let's actually leave here and let's go to a tag. All right, now what a tag is doing as my selector is it's going to apply to an HTML element. So let's actually come in, and I have a whole bunch of heading 3s. Now all I can see, these are all of my HTML elements. So what I can do with this is I can apply it to a tag, and then it will change all of the HTML inside there. So let's actually go into the body. Or actually, better yet, let's go to heading 3. Okay, and let's just keep it this document because I have a whole bunch of heading 3s. Let's hit OK. Now what we're going to do, and let's actually change the color of the font color. I'm just going to come in, let's just choose something, let's choose that. We'll say apply. Let's choose something else. That's kind of hard to say, isn't it? Let's go for something. Woo, that's going to be much brighter. And let's change our font size. Let's go to like 16. I'm going to leave pixels. Let's actually use the EM. Now the EM is, oh wow, that's way too big. Okay, is the way to go because what the EM has to do with is it's relative and it's based on the actual computer. I'm sorry, 1 would be the way to go, and that would be 1 based on what my computer is set at. Okay, I will go over that in another video, looking at what is the best type to use. Now, let's actually change the font that's being used. Let's actually change these headings also to a different font. And I'm going to actually even change that. Let's go to 1 without a serif. There we go. Okay, so we can see the difference, and that is what our tag does. Now, what is inheritance? Inheritance is saying, and this is with the tag, that and it actually applies to all of it. Any property applied to a parent tag is inherited by the tags within that tag. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, if I was to come in and go into my split view and apply a tag to the body, it would apply to all of the, change things around with the body, it would apply to all of the items that are inside of that tag. I think that makes sense. And you can play around with it a little bit more. All right, so let's go on to our next one. We just went over what tag is. Let's go to a class selector. Now, a class selector can apply to an HTML element. All right, so let's say I come in right into here, okay? And what I want to say right here is I'm going to say, I want a new CSS rule again. Okay, and let's do a class. Okay, and I'm going to say what I want to do with this one is I want to type start of line spacing. Okay, I'm going to say I want the start of line spacing. So I'm going to hit, or actually better yet, let's keep it simple. Let's say we want to have purple text. Now, what we want to note is that our purple, no, I'm sorry, our class selectors always begin with a period. Let's just keep it in this document only. And again, what we can do with this is we can apply it to any HTML element. We can come on through, and we have to do this manually. So we're going to hit OK. And let's actually come on in, and let's actually set our purple text. We'll say OK, OK. Okay, so that's what I did. Now, what we can see with this, now we could come on in here, and let's actually also come on in. Now, what we can do when we come in, we can apply this then through HTML. So if I wanted to then come in and apply this to other places, I would come on in, right through class, purple text. There it is. Okay, makes sense? So again, when we come on into our class, these are all the ones that we'll see right in our HTML. And this is done through HTML. Even when we come into our split view, we can see right where it is that we are. Okay, come on up here, and okay, let's come into our code navigator. Let's see where it is. Okay. Okay. All right, moving right along, moving right along. And here we can see purple text. Okay, it's put in right into our HTML. Okay, let's come to our last one, which probably you're most familiar with. And this is, and we could say that many people confuse ID selectors with class selectors. ID selectors are based on the ID of the element. And it's actually said best practices, they're used once per page. They're very specific and target ID attributes. Now, I already created one, okay? So here we have this right here, and this is our header, okay? Now let's see if we were to come on in here, and let's just change this one to heading 3. Now automatically that actually changed this to this color because it was heading 3. But if I come on in, right, and I edit this rule, I can see that it's my header. Okay, it looks like I have some things. Let's actually come right in. Let's grab this guy right here, and let's edit him. Edit rule, and let's actually set the type. Let's actually change it. Well, actually, we're not going to worry about changing it. Let's change the size to 1.5 EMs. Okay, and what that did when I do this is the ID attributes will be, we can say they're very powerful, because whatever you apply to the ID is going to be what will be override everything else. We could say it's the strongest. Okay, I keep doing the same thing, but I want to come right to here, and I'm going to edit this rule. And if I come on in and I grab my type, I could change the color of the whole thing. Now, seeing this as being different, but I could come in and override it in here. Now, this is an example of how I would come in and do a even a compound selection based on the selection within here. So we could even come on in and edit rule. That changed all of them. All right, let's go back. Cancel. All right, so what I would need to do with this one would be come on in, new CSS rule, and we could do a compound based on our selection, and that would be header, heading 3. And what I want to do, and this is the based on your selection, you can change something around. We could come on in, grab our type. Let's make it a different color blue, just for the heck of it. There we go. So now we can see that this one is different than all the other ones. And it looks like as I was going about doing this, I changed all of my heading 3s. Okay, I could come on in. What color were they before? They were like this. All right, so there we can see it. Now, what's happened is what I did, because I came on in, I was very specific with this. This was overrided what was in these other heading 3s. And actually, you can see that when I applied this whole thing that it changed it. All right, now let's come in. Let's actually look at creating a ID selector. So I make this selection, and what we want to do is, let's say we want to make a new CSS rule. And let's make a class. Let's apply it to any one HTML element. And let's make this. Now, when we're doing a class, it's going to apply to, actually, let's actually change it. Let's go to an ID. Okay. And let's actually make this one bottom. We'll just keep it this document only. We'll say OK. And let's just say, let's do a box. I think I made it 90%. Height, we can make it auto. Let's make the right and the left auto. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to insert this. So if I was to come on in, and actually what I want to do is I want to copy and paste this inside of here. So once you create it, now you can come in and insert it. We can come on into our insert panel, window insert, turn that back on, window insert, it was right in front of me. And now we can come on in and we could say insert div tag, and we'll say that it's an ID. So we come on in, we could say bottom. And actually what I could do is I could come on in and one more time, come on, insert div tag. I'm going to wrap it around my selection. It's an ID. It's bottom. I'll say OK. And there it is. All right, so there we go. Taking a look at some of the differences between the different CSS selectors. Actually, no, it's really not best practice to have capital letters too. So before I would go live with this, I would actually get rid of those. All right, so there we have it. What is the difference between the CSS selectors? These are our CSS selectors. Quick review, we have class, ID, tag, and compound. With a tag, we can redefine an HTML element. We can choose an HTML element and redefine them. A class selector we can apply to an HTML element. And actually we can apply to, I should say this should be any HTML element. We choose the naming of the attribute and have to apply them manually. Now one thing that we want to guard against is having so many class selectors that don't have much logic to them. ID selectors are a little bit different. Many people confuse ID selectors with class selectors. ID selectors are based on the ID of the element. They should be used once per page, and they are very specific and target ID attributes. Each ID attribute on a page should be unique. So what we're looking at here are best practices, and you should choose the name of the attribute and have to apply them manually. Guard against having so many of them, right? Let's actually fix these typos. And we want to say they can apply to any. Again, just a quick recap was, and you can even apply them within other ones. So what we did, let's say if I wanted to now come into my ID, I could come into my ID and apply a class attribute. So I come on in and say, purple text. Okay. But again, if I was to then, just one more time, come in and change the rules for my, for this, and I come in and I edited it, I could actually change the type too. the color of the type also. I leave you with that. Again, experiment, and that's a little something. Now, also, I do have a video on inline styles, and inline styles are used quite a bit if you want to change one thing. An inline style, you can just, again, make a selection, and it actually is not, the inline style is not saved on the CSS sheet. Thanks for listening. Okay, thank you for listening, YouTube users. Bear with me as I try to grow a little bit here. And if you'd like to, you can actually come and visit my website at learnartanddesign.com. And I'm going to actually begin to post all of this information here. And also come visit my blog at Blogger Web Design. And you can find a link to that right from my site. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to post all of the new information on CSS3. So thanks for listening, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my blog, and more is coming soon. Thanks so much.